and you're listening to Tech Radio, the latest stories about technology and science. We're here every week at 6 p.m. on Mondays, both on our website at Tech Radio as well as on KOPN 89.5 FM in Columbia, Missouri. This week we have Brad.
Hey, everybody.
And we're not doing anything too fancy today. We're on Jitsi, I guess, is the platform.
Jitsi, yep.
Jitsi, and we're just doing screen sharing, so you'll be looking at my computer in today's show. Nothing too exotic.
And Jitsi is it's an open source alternative to Zoom. So if you like Zoom but you wanted to use an open source platform, Jitsi is very stable, used by both at individuals. So you can do meetings directly through their website, but you can also run a Jitsi server and do everything self-hosted if you wanted to not have to trust the man.
Yep. And probably more important, if you're using this in a corporate environment, you can run it behind your firewall.
Exactly.
And not put it up on the internet, depending on what level of paranoia and or security you wish to reach at your company. Or organization. So we'll play around with that this week and see how it does.
So what are we talking about this week?
We're talking about NFTs. And there's a lot of confusion and interest out there. And in fact, you were sharing with me this interest over time from Google Trends and NFTs.
And it seems like the interest started to spike right at the beginning of February. So within the last month or 2 months, this is at least the number of stories that I've seen in the popular press related to NFTs has just gone through the roof, just gone crazy.
Yeah, and they're kind of hard to explain, which is why we're doing one whole show on just what NFTs are. They're not necessarily scams, but there's a lot of scamishness out there. I don't know if that's a real word or not, and so it's better to be educated as far as what an NFT is, why you might want one, why you might not want one, and how to get around some of the wording out there that's kind of misleading sometimes in some contexts. And so, we're going to go through what an NFT is so that you're an informed consumer, as you will.
All right, let's start at the beginning. What is an NFT?
What it stands for is non-fungible token, which basically means it can't be faked. And more importantly, it can't be duplicated. And there's, and I have to be real careful with my wording on this because those have very specific technical meanings.
Let's start by defining the word fungible.
Fungible,
That's not a word you normally see in conversation.
Right, unless you're a quant or someone that works in the finance industry, fungibility doesn't really jump out at you. Fungibility means replaceability. So if I were to, handwrite you a letter on paper, that's very non-fungible because there's only one letter in the world in all of time and existence. You can't just replace one handwritten letter for another handwritten letter. They're different. They just are. As opposed to, let's say I want to give you $5 and, but I only have a $10 bill, so I hand you a 10 and you hand me back a 5. That works because you're not looking for a particular $5. You just want $5.
Right.
Because money's completely fungible. It would be the same thing with like a metal or anything that's elemental. If you want some gold, you don't care what shape the gold is in. I mean, not really. Well, I guess you might if you're like looking for a collectible or something. But generally speaking, if gold is gold, you can melt it down and put it into a different shape. It doesn't really matter what it is. It's completely replaceable, very fungible. And so all you care about is...
fungibility is not the same as uniqueness because a $5 bill has a serial number on it.
Yeah, it is.
So it's different than uniqueness, but it does mean that it can be easily replaced. That was the word you used when we started, was replaceability. It's like from a utility point of view, one $5 bill is as good as the next.
Yeah.
One one pound of corn is as good as another pound of corn.
Yep, exactly. And
So
most
what's a
things in
non?
life are in the middle. You know, one
Yeah,
one bouquet of flowers is the same as any other bouquet of flowers, but if my love interest gives me a particular bouquet, that's the one I want. And so while
right.
a flower is a flower, but there's this particular flower that I want because it has a memory associated with it. So that's partially fungible, if you will. But most things fall
So,
in one or the other directions. Yeah.
but these are non-fungible tokens. So
Yes.
what's a non-fungible token?
Well, a token is a very vague term in and of itself, but in the terms of cryptocurrency, a token is a log. It's a point in time, a reference. It's a reference point. It is more often than not a number, a really, really long number that's unique compared to other numbers. And so when they're talking about a blockchain, to have a token on a blockchain means you have an entry in that list of tokens. And the way I like to think of it is imagine if you had a sheet of paper with lines on it, and I were to write my name at the top. I write John at the top. That's a token in the blockchain. And then if later on you add your name to the to the blockchain, you'll put the word Brad on there because that's your name. Now, you writing the word Brad on there below my name doesn't take my name off. It's
Right.
still there. And short of time travel, you can't take my name off of it. But you're now the current person at the bottom of the list. And if you put another person's name on there, now they're at the bottom of the list. So there's something always at the end of the chain, and the chain can't be changed. Now that's where kind of this analogy breaks down, because you certainly could get another piece of paper and make another list of
Right. Yeah.
names.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, though. It's a different list, and so for any one list, uh, it can't. It's non-fungible in the sense that you cannot erase anything off the list, and you can't change anything on the list. You can't use an eraser and erase one's name and put a new name on it because it's non-fungible. And so it's I'm not going to get into the math on this show, but the reason it's non-fungible has to do with cryptography. It is a really complex algorithm that can't be reversed. Once it's on there, you can't take it off, whether you want it
But
off or
this,
not.
now these things have to have some sort of practical application. I mean, we look at that Google Trends search, and all of a sudden, a lot of people are interested in these numbers for some reason, and it's because people are using these. These non-fungible tokens are a form of blockchain, sort of like Bitcoin, but they're using these things in a way that's not currency.
Right. It's meant for tracking things. And which is why blockchains are used by banks in Europe right now. They're starting to, it's a big trend in banking is in fact blockchains. Now, not Bitcoin. I'm not talking about a cryptocurrency. People use blockchains for things that have nothing to do with cryptocurrency. If you want something that's really algorithmically secured, so for example, if a bank needs to send over, $10 million overnight, they'll put that transaction onto a blockchain and it'll be confirmed by the other bank, and that will be the record of movement of money. Now, the money itself is fungible, but that's not the point. The point is the record is not fungible. Once you
Right.
put that item on the ledger, it can't be taken off again, even if both banks agree to it. That's the thing. And that is, in fact, we'll get into this much later, but that is an odd, weird downside to non-fungible things. Is nothing's reversible, even if there's a court of law involved. Um,
Mm.
Now, one of the early uses of this blockchain technology and NFTs, that's what this is. This is about keeping these blockchains for the purposes of tracking things. One of the early uses of this was, in fact, or some countries overseas were using NFTs for tracking deeds. So if you sold
Okay.
your land to someone else in your country, uh, their name would be attached to the blockchain that was associated with that lot of land. And if they in turn sold it to someone else, and this is not decentralized. This is actually being run by the government. But here's the thing: if some new leader of the country comes in and decides to reassign everyone's land to somebody else, they can still do it by putting their names on the end of the blockchain, but they can't change history. That's it. No matter what
Right.
the new leader wants to do, they can't take anyone's names off. Because mathematically, if anyone has a copy of that blockchain anywhere, I mean, short of just getting rid of computers and going back to the Stone
Right.
Age, you can't get rid of the record. It's on there. And so you have proof that you own that lot of land, no matter who's the person that runs that country now. And so there is a security benefit. This is why, again, why banks use it for transfers in between banks. There's a security benefit that is very strong, because now even if everyone decides to do the wrong thing, they can't undo it because it's math.
Uh,
It's breaking blockchains is technically easier than time travel, but not a lot.
okay. Okay. But all right. So this is interesting, but fairly esoteric. I mean,
It
this is
is.
if you're a quant or a mathematician or a banker or even a politician, you might be interested. But
But that's
all of
not
a
why it's
sudden,
going nuts right now.
we're
Because
talking about something new.
now people are thinking big money, big money. Because that's that's the nature of humans. This really started with a group called CryptoKitties, and I'll go ahead and put that for those following on the YouTube video up, or even if you're listening to the show, you can later on jump to the YouTube video and you can see the different websites we're going to here. CryptoKitties is a game. Just flat out, it's a game. And what you do is you breed kitties. You put in some Ethereum, which is one of the cryptocurrencies out there, to purchase or somehow get from a friend a crypto kitty, and you breed it with another crypto kitty, and its DNA mixes in unique combinations with another crypto kitty, and it changes the picture algorithmically that you're making of the new cat. And it's a very it's you that sounds like fairly boring, but actually it's a fairly interesting setup. If you want to go through it and take a look at it, it's cryptokitties.co. And it just says for game playing purposes, it'd be an interesting game in and of itself, especially if you're one of those people that really like doing collectibles and that kind of stuff. But they also put up a marketplace. Like if you liked a particular kitty a lot, you could make a bid on it if the person was willing to sell it. You don't have to sell it if you don't want. So it's like a card collecting game, but there's no physical cards. And the whole system's run by CryptoKitties. They're the ones in control of it.
So a couple of things here, just to clarify.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Ethereum, and Ethereum is a cryptocurrency which
Yes.
uses a blockchain.
Yes.
And one of the interesting things about Ethereum is that besides carrying the information in the chain, like the name that you wrote on there, you can have actual code contained within the blockchain, and the
Yes.
code gets executed by this distributed network of computers.
Yeah.
It's called the Ethereum virtual machine. So what you have is what they call smart contracts, pieces of code that get executed when you do a transaction in here. So when
Yes.
you would run a transaction that breeds two cats, crypto kitties, and it would create a new crypto kitty, that's a transaction, just like it's an Ethereum transaction. But
Yes.
it isn't a transfer of value. It's an execution of code that creates an additional asset.
Yes.
And the algorithm that allows these crypto kitties to breed, one of the attributes is that each generation gets a new number, and the older generations breed less and less often. So to some degree, they're rarer. So one reason you might desire a particular crypto kitty and want to purchase it is because it's a very old one, and it
Yeah.
has
The
that
Generation
there's
Zero Crypto Kitty.
yeah.
Yes.
In fact, there's one, I guess, like Crypto Kitty number 18, once sold at an auction for about $170,000.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And these things went through an explosion of popularity, a lot of hype in about 2008. And no, Was it 2000? Yeah, I think 2008. And because this was the first time anybody had seen an application of non-fungible tokens and this kind of code played out in a way like this.
Yes.
So people were like collecting these things because they thought that, it's history.
Yes. And so it's a very interesting thing, and I we'll get into the scams out there, but this is not a scam necessarily. You know what you're getting, which is a virtual game piece that's a particular cat setup. Now you don't own the copyright to that cat or anything like that, but you're not even thinking in those terms because it's part of the game.
Right.
It's like playing a game of Monopoly. You didn't buy the rights to the word Monopoly or trademark or anything. I mean, not for $6. You didn't. Hasbro still owns all that, but or is that Hasbro that owns Monopoly? It doesn't matter.
Oh, I don't remember anymore.
Mattel, I don't know who it is. One of those companies does, but you're playing the game, and you're playing with tokens and fake cash and that kind of stuff, and so you're buying a fake entry on a blockchain. Well, not a fake. The entry is not fake. The entry is very real. What you're buying is purely virtual and for the fun of it. Now, would I ever spend 100 grand on something that has no meaning outside of a game context? No, I wouldn't personally do it, but whoever did it, they knew what they
Yeah.
were getting.
Well, you mentioned that the um, outside the game context, and that's one of the things that's kind of important because we've had non-fungible digital things for a long time. When you buy a domain name, that's a non-fungible digital property
Yes, it
because there
is.
can only be one of that particular domain, and it's registered to one person, and either one person has it or the other does, but two people can't have it.
Yes.
So we've had things like that, but or when you buy a digital tickets to an event, that's non fungible. You can't buy the ticket once, share it with five of your friends, and all go to the concert. The first person who uses it blocks everybody else from using it.
Right.
So the thing is, if you bought a ticket like that and you wanted to sell it, well, you either have to go back to Ticketmaster and have them reissue the ticket to the other guy, or you have to trust that the person who's selling it doesn't go get to the gate early and use it.
Yes, because
There's
then it
no there's
stops
no
working.
way
Yeah.
there's no way outside of the Ticketmaster system to transfer that ticket. And that's one of the things is with a system like this, you can put the like a crypto kitty up on eBay, and if eBay supports the Ethereum payment, they take their cut, and the act of selling that crypto kitty transfers it because it writes into the blockchain the transfer of ownership.
Right.
And that's one of the important ideas is that these tokens are no longer dependent on one particular server or company or one external authority to say who owns it. The record of ownership is contained in the thing itself, as well as all of the logic for doing the transfer from one to another. So
Yep.
now you can do things like sell crypto kitties, but you can sell them on eBay, and only one person still ends up owning that particular
Right.
kitty.
Right. And in fact, if you went to on my website here, I've jumped to OpenSea. You can buy and sell crypto kitties on OpenSea. It's another marketplace that has nothing to do with CryptoKitties.co. They didn't do it by permission. It's an
Right.
Ethereum. Yeah, here we go. Here's a bunch of crypto kitties. Now, because it's an algorithmic contract that's built into the Ethereum, um, I would imagine CryptoKitties is still getting their breeding fee when you sell something, or
Right.
whatever,
Yeah.
or the whatever terms they're using in there. So they're not locked out, but it's done through the Ethereum non-centralized system of algorithms.
Yeah, that was one of the neat things that I saw was that you could, when you design say you wanted to sell a piece of art with a non-fungible token, you could specify that every time this piece of art is resold down the road, that 2% of the sale price goes back to the original artist.
Yes.
And that is perfectly legit to specify in the terms for how it gets sold. So the
Yeah.
artist could continue to get revenue off of that forever.
Yes. And that your wording actually brings me to the first forms of fraud out there.
Okay.
None of those things sell the art. Not a single
Right.
one of them. Um, and so let's. I'm going to jump over to back to a real world analogy. If I paint a picture of a vase filled with flowers, and I take that original picture and I make a photocopy of it, and I sell you a copy of it, or I make a litho print if I want to be fancy, because we've got some litho prints here in the house. It's a very high quality copy of the original artwork, and I sell that to you. You don't own the painting. You own a copy of the painting. And if you were to go then and make a copy of that copy and start selling it to other people, I could sue you because you don't
Mm-hmm.
have the copyright to that painting. You didn't buy the painting. You bought a one person copy of it, and you're not allowed to do anything other than look at it. Now you can in turn, of course, sell it if you want to, but otherwise you didn't buy any rights to the image. It is not yours. Um, I could also, getting back to my analogy of a piece of paper, instead of sending you a copy of that picture, I could not even bother with that. I could just write your name on a list of things on a piece of paper, on a notepad, and I put the word Brad at the top. And I could sell you the right to have your name at the top of that piece of paper. And I will just write it as a title on there. This piece of paper is associated with my artwork. That's
Ah,
an
okay.
NFT.
Uh-huh.
You, in fact, have not even purchased the right to look at the painting, which is something you would get in the real world if you bought an actual copy of the painting.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
it would be yours to have, and you could sell that right to somebody else, a view only right of that painting. They can't do anything else with it. They can't make copies or anything, but they could at least look at the painting. In theory, if I sold you an NFT of my painting, I could hide that painting, and you go, "Wait, John, could I see the painting?" And I say, "No, go away," and you'd have no recourse because all I sold you was that name on a list.
Right.
And let's say you really, really liked your name on that list because you were proud that you had the NFT to my painting of flowers. I go, yeah, I made $10 when I sold that. I'm gonna make another. I'm gonna get out another piece of paper and write someone else's name on another list. Now I've sold two NFTs to that painting, and you're probably gonna get upset, going, wait, I bought that painting. No, you didn't. You bought that list. You bought
Right.
a
Yep.
name on a list. And I can sell two names on a list if I want to. In fact, one of the funny stories recently was John Cleese drew a picture of the Brooklyn Bridge, a comedian out of the UK, and he started selling it because he thinks it's just funny that people are buying these things. He's not a famous artist; he's a comedian. As my understanding, it's not even a particularly good picture of the Brooklyn Bridge. But
No.
he's selling it. Here's the thing: if he wanted to, tomorrow he could sell another NFT to that painting. In other words, he could sell a million NFTs to that painting, thoroughly ruining the value of NFTs to that painting
Right. Yep.
because he transferred no rights whatsoever to you. And that is the key. If you buy, uh, whose tweet is it? Jack Dorsey? Whose tweet
Jack
is
Dorsey's
Jack
first
first
tweet
tweet?
number one.
Yeah, he's selling the NFT to that. So the way the people word it though is, do you want to buy his first tweet? That is misleading. It's do you want to buy? And if you look at the text, usually, like if you go to Rarible.com or you go to OpenSea and you look at the actual words, things you can take into a court of law, they're very careful how they word it. They talk very explicitly that you can buy an NFT to that picture. Now, in casual conversation, people are going, "Well, I'm buying that picture." No, you are not buying that picture, though. That's the truth. You're not even buying the right to look at it. You're buying an NFT. And if later on you're upset by that, well, it's too bad, because they did give you the NFT. They put your name on the list, so they didn't steal from you, technically.
Yep.
Now you may go, but having my name on the list somewhere doesn't. What's that give me? Well,
you can prevent anybody else from being on the list.
Yes. You can't prevent other lists from being made.
No.
But you can certainly prevent anyone else from getting on that list. That's true. And so it's legit in that sense. You got exactly what they told you they were selling. But the value of that, I don't think it's really crunched in people's heads what that really means. It would be different, by the way, if they added something to it. I'm going to be talking to a friend of mine, trying to encourage him to, because he comes out with albums, encouraging him to put one of his songs up on sell an NFT. But you can contractually do more than that. Earlier, you mentioned selling domain names. You could have a domain name service that ran off NFTs, and whoever was the last name on that blockchain actually owned the domain name. You could do that with a picture. You could give copyright assignment to the owner of the NFT, legally speaking, with a contract. It'd be an open-ended contract, because that NFT entry could be sold somebody, but if you actually purchased it, that's your image now. Or right now is it the NBA that's selling access to highlight clips to the basketball games. You can buy the NFT to a highlight clip. But when you reporters talk about it, and so just bought that highlight clip, and it's like, no, you're misleading. The reporter's misleading somebody. No, you didn't buy that highlight clip. I guarantee you, if you put that highlight clip up on YouTube, they'll demonetize you or tell you to take it down. Because the NBA owns that highlight clip, not you. Yeah. You're not allowed to show it to anybody. It's theirs, not yours. All you bought was a name associated with it. Which, if you're doing it as a donation, that's what a lot of people are doing. And so in that sense, that's perfectly legit. If this is like a new form of Patreon where you're like supporting artists that you like, you bought an NFT of an artist that made a great painting, you enjoy their painting, so you buy the NFT, and that's a way for the artist to make money. Well, that's fantastic. You understand then that you didn't buy the painting. You just found a way to give money to the artist, which is fantastic. And if a lot of these systems, like on Rarible and other ones, it is rigged with the rules in, I don't want to use the word rigged, it's set up in the rules of the Ethereum contract where every time you sell it to somebody else, the artist gets a kickback on a percentage of it. Usually it's like 10% or something like that. That's a great way to fund the artist. That's, in that sense, thumbs up. As long as the people buying it aren't under the impression that they're buying the art.
But I think, people, whether they think they're buying the art or not, in some sense, I think people understand that, well, it's digital art. So, the artwork itself is absolutely fungible. You could make a copy of it. So they don't necessarily think that they're getting that, or they're getting the copyright to it. But I think people intrinsically believe that they're paying for something that has value.
Yes.
That they can turn around and sell again. It may not keep its value, it may deteriorate or it may increase, but
what I was curious about is, because getting to the example of the painting, like I've got in my bedroom a really interesting picture that I love, and if you look at the bottom of it, it's a linotype, and it has like a number on it. It says 386 of 1,000. There was no contract that I signed when I bought that painting, but the fact that the artist put 386/1000, is an implied contract that he won't sell more than 1,000 copies of that linotype.
Right.
That gives it a limited value. I've been looking at Rarible and those other places. None of them prevent the artist from selling 1,000,000 copies of that NFT. 1,000,000 new NFTs for that same piece of art. But is there an implied contract? Maybe there is. But again, there's no law around this, so that's going to be a Wild West thing for a while.
And I expect that we will see. I mean, somebody is going to say, wait a minute, I bought something of value. What did I get?
Right.
And it'll probably get fought out in the courts at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there enough of an implication that you can be there's only one NFT for that artwork or that NBA clip? I don't have an answer for that. And what's unfortunate is that no one's going out of their way to make it obvious, because you could put it in the terms of service at least. But no one's doing that right now that I know of. Maybe there's a counterexample. Someone else actually has done that, so I don't know. By the way, this is a little bit off topic, but there is a downside to blockchains. By the way, let's just pretend for a moment that instead of John Cleese being a real nice guy, he was evil. And it turns out he used slave child labor to make that picture of the Brooklyn Bridge. And you didn't know that, and you bought an NFT of that Brooklyn Bridge, and you then sold it to somebody else, and they sold it to somebody else, and then the scandal hits. A 2-year-old drew this picture under slave conditions, and it was horrible. It's evil. You might go, oh, you need to take that name off there. I don't want my name associated with that NFT anymore. Well, guess what?
Yeah, not going to happen.
Not going to happen. Mathematically impossible to move that name. You can go to court if you want to, but it doesn't change math.
It doesn't. In to some degree, that is, when you talk about artwork, one of the important attributes is the provenance, the history of that. That you can prove that this artwork is legit because you can trace back who owned it every step of the way, all the way back to the original artist.
Yep.
So for the purposes of establishing provenance, an NFT or a blockchain is a fantastic tool. But, if you're not buying anything, if somebody says, oh, no, the scandal hits and they're going to accuse me of, I owned the NFT to this artwork, but, I never even saw the artwork. I never owned the artwork. I only owned the NFT.
Yeah, but you gave money to John Cleese.
Right. Yeah. That's the thing. Yeah.
You can't prove it. Yeah. In fact, it's absolute proof that you gave money to John Cleese. There's no way around it. Yeah. There's also, by the way, rampant speculation that some of the items selling are they're selling for large amounts of money, not because the buyer or the seller cares one whit about the artwork. It's a way to transfer money without being seen by the IRS.
Oh.
In other words, it's
laundering.
It's money laundering. Yep. As an example, let's say, I just received a large shipment of cocaine, and I want to send money back to the person who sent me that shipment of cocaine. So that person, scratches something out on a piece of paper and puts it up as a fancy piece of art onto Rarible. And he puts it up there for $10, and then I go buy it for $100,000. He just made almost $100,000 on his sale, and he can show it to whatever tax authorities in that country that he made. He made a legitimate transaction where he made that money because he sold it. And it's a very interesting way to do. Now, both parties are kind of locked in with their chains, so it's hard to deny that the transaction happened.
Right, yeah.
But that's not the goal, because you can't see the other half of it.
You can still remain anonymous with an Ethereum wallet, can't you? Okay.
You can, only in the same sense as you can remain anonymous with Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. If you do a transaction if two parties do a transaction with Bitcoin or Ethereum, either one, the whole world sees it. Absolutely everybody knows that this money went from this account to that account. The problem is they can't prove that that was your account because your actual name is not on it. It's just a number. Now, if they can prove your name is associated with the account, all of your transactions are now visible to the whole world.
Oh, you're right. Okay.
Because it's public anonymity. That unique number is mathematically guaranteed to be the same account. What's changed is that they they don't know who actually owns it, and that's why people that have been doing Bitcoin transactions in the dark web, when they eventually get them, that's when they finally track the real person to the account. They know the account.
Right. Yeah.
You know, the equivalent of the bank number. They know the bank number. They just can't figure out who has that bank number. But if they catch that together, bam.
You got all of it. Yeah.
They got all of it. Exactly. They know exactly how much money you moved. So it's anonymous only in the sense that it doesn't actually have your name on it. Everything else about it's public. It's very not anonymous. But it's interesting stuff. It's like all things social and new, the world will learn the good and the bad and the ugly.
Well, it's one more important tool. I mean, we need something like the ability to sell tickets and be able to transfer them through other markets. You know, if the only way I can sell my concert tickets is to go back and pay a premium through Ticketmaster, then that sucks. You know, because what I want to do is I want to sell the tickets to the guy I work with, or put them up on eBay or something like that. And we need that kind of liquidity around digital properties.
Yeah. Yep.
So, but I think this is about the current art trend is about the third or maybe fourth hype boom that's happened in the NFT world since 2008. And I expect that we're going to see a lot more news stories around this for a couple of weeks, and then it's going to fade away. And then, but like I say, none of these uses and technologies ever goes away. It just, the first ones out there are experimenting, and then it's hype, and then it kind of eventually settles into normal utility.
Yes. And I would dare say also, this is not the first. Cryptocurrencies have always been used for legitimate transactions, but it's very easy to argue that for Bitcoin, most people weren't using it for transactions. Most people were using it as a value store. And frankly, in the early days, a lot of the Bitcoin transactions were of a less than legal nature. So you had a segment of the Bitcoin users that were using it to do things under the books, or however you term that, out of the limelight of authorities. Whereas you also had a large number of people that are using it as an asset, like gold. They weren't using it as a currency. But this is a heavy use of Ethereum, because a lot of these NFTs are being driven by Ethereum because they've designed Ethereum. That was one of the purposes of Ethereum in the first place. They weren't wanting it to be just a unit of value. They wanted it to be a way to do decentralized contracts from the beginning. Right. And so Ethereum is actually being used as a currency now. And a lot of it, I would dare say, is perfectly legit. Buying and selling CryptoKitties is not illegal.
Right.
And the CryptoKitty is the asset itself. But you're buying it and selling it with Ethereum, which means you're using Ethereum as a currency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's combining both of those things.
Yes.
The non-fungible nature, the currency, and the asset.
Yeah, it's a mix. In fact, that's probably the big barrier right now for if you wanted to just for fun of it to buy a CryptoKitty, because some of them are fairly they're not necessarily super expensive. Unfortunately, there's a birthing fee. It's kind of like a minimum price to do a transaction on Ethereum. But Ethereum's value has risen so much recently that minimum fee is kind of high. It may cost you a couple $100 just to buy the kitty, even if it's a worthless kitty. There's just a transactional overhead to it right now. But I imagine the people that are doing Ethereum's backends, the people that are involved in the community, are trying to work out ways to get that transaction cost back down again. Because it wasn't always that high. It was actually far lower in the past. It was actually pretty reasonable.
Yeah, I want to say that that Ethereum charges a fee. What do they call it? Gas.
They call it gas. Yeah.
Okay. And
Basically,
I think that some of the markets, like OpenSea, have now they've provided a mechanism for you to create new tokens without having to pay a gas fee.
Right. If you're willing to trust a third party, you can remove a lot of the transaction costs, because that gas. So that people get used to the terms here, the gas is used for authenticating the transaction. So if I give you an Ethereum unit, and I want the whole world to recognize that that happened, in other words, I can confirm that I made that transaction to you. What we do is we put that transaction up onto the bigger blockchain, and then all of the miners out there. That's how they earn their money. Is they take that huge mathematical algorithm and they confirm that the transaction happened. And so that's why you can't. It's not near. I don't say it's impossible. It's very difficult to defeat the system if there's enough people using it, because that's a decentralized confirmation that occurs worldwide. However, if you and I are both on, I don't know which one of those systems is doing it independently, but if you and I go to Coinbase and you and I agree to trust Coinbase, and I transfer money to you, and Coinbase doesn't bother doing the global authentication, and then you in turn send it to somebody else, and that person sends that coin to somebody else, and only at the very end when someone tries to move the money out of Coinbase, it's only when they move it out of the Coinbase system that they actually have to confirm globally the transaction occurred. So you just had 4 transactions occur with no gas.
Okay.
And so, if you buy and sell stuff, if you keep your Ethereum money on OpenSea, and then you give that money to someone else on OpenSea, and they in turn use that to buy a different CryptoKitty on OpenSea, as you jump from person to person to person, there doesn't need to be a confirmation of the transaction, because OpenSea has their own internal systems to confirm it. And that gets rid of the transaction fees.
I see. Okay.
So there's ways around it in that sense. The problem is now everyone's depending on OpenSea. Then see what I'm saying? You've gone back to a centralized answer.
So, do you own any non-fungible tokens or purchased any properties here?
No, I haven't bought one yet. I probably should. I'm not going to get a CryptoKitty because it seems like minimum price there is about $400. Yeah, I'm willing to experiment, but not that much. I do own Ethereum though. I got paid by a few vendors in Ethereum coins, which is very cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's a good way for people to experiment with this if they wanted to see what it's all about?
It is worth, if nothing else, playing with an Ethereum wallet just to try things out. It's not as expensive as Bitcoin, and learning a little bit about it. Going to Coinbase is not a bad way to do Ethereum. They're an American company, and they're regulated by the SEC because they're publicly traded, so they can't game things very much. That's a big selling point. Get a Coinbase wallet so you can get some Ethereum on it, and you can buy it from Coinbase. So you can get used to the idea of having something on your mobile phone that acts like a wallet.
Okay.
And then you can use that wallet if you want to go to OpenSea or Rarible. I tend to like the stuff I see on OpenSea a little bit better, but I have no basis of that opinion.
Well, it looks like OpenSea's market might be aggregating auctions from Rarible as well. Like they're all kind of showing up in one place.
Well, they're all using Ethereum, so they can all cross each other's boundaries, and there's no way around it. This is interesting. An
Right.
unreleased footage auction. That sounds very dubious.
Ooh. Unreleased footage of what?
I don't know. That's, there may be a transfer of value there for real, but I don't want to know what it is really, possibly. Uh, oh my goodness. This this seems like a very ad hoc anything goes thing, the Rarible.
Yeah, I was browsing through both Rarible and OpenSea and looking at things that are available, and there's a lot of garbage, and you see the same picture showing up in 10 different auctions.
Yeah. Hey, keep in mind if someone's doing an independent picture, you know, not to pick on John Cleese, but I mean he's not doing a series of photos, and I wouldn't spend more than $50 on John Cleese's picture. I mean, do keep in mind that if you buy some random picture for $50 somewhere, you may never see that $50 ever again.
Right.
This is not a get rich quick scheme. I think that's part of why people are looking at it, though, because they're looking at it, oh, how can I make money off of this? And I understand. We all want to be buyers and sellers, and it can be some interesting stuff out there, but take it with a grain of salt.
Well, there's the fear of missing out.
Yeah.
This should be the time I get in on non-fungible tokens, because otherwise I might miss out.
Yeah. If you learn anything from the show, it being an NFT by itself doesn't mean anything.
Right. Yep. That's the takeaway.
Yeah. So just having a NFT, that's not a goal. See if there's something out there you like, or maybe there's an artist you like, and so if not worst case scenario, you just supported an artist you liked. That's fantastic. so it was a good deal regardless. Yeah. But start slow. Look around. I don't have any real advice beyond that. This is not a finance show.
Sounds good.
Well, once again, you've been listening to the latest and greatest stories from Tech.Radio. Thanks for listening, and as always, stay safe.